I'm Jill Martin. I am an associate professor of education, and I teach at both the undergraduate level and the graduate level. Active engagement is where we get students working as producers of their learning instead of consumers of their learning. Passive learning would be reading and listening, and so active engagement is anything but that. And I think it's using higher order thinking skills, incorporating analysis and evaluation, synthesis, application of the information they're learning, and bringing meaning of any kind, personal meaning and academic meaning, to help them better hook the information and transform the information to something that they own. In my classroom, half of it is the obvious is a lab experience when they're out doing clinical work, but when they're in my classroom, in a 50-minute class, or some of my classes are 4 hours long, it's involving students in the learning. Sometimes it's just mental engagement where they're writing and constructing information. Sometimes they're socially engaging with one another. Sometimes they're physically moving around the room. And it's always about producing something. So it could be discovery learning, where they have done their reading and now they have to make connections and draw inferences. It could be inquiry, where I bring several IEPs for a special education lesson where they look at authentic documents and draw some conclusions, and then that's followed up with a class conversation about insights and meanings that they can draw from what they're learning. It could also be an activity where I give them vocabulary words or key concepts, and I have them organize the information in ways that make sense to them, and they compare it to their peers. And then I ask them to group them in ways that I intended for them to group the information, and to compare the 3 different examples of how these pieces of information and concepts connect to one another. And again, the whole point is making them produce information instead of just receiving the information. I really appreciate the various learning styles that students bring into our classrooms, and so I do everything I can to work within our visual learners, our auditory learners, our kinesthetic learners. But I also respect the work of Howard Gardner and the multiple intelligences. And active learning gives me opportunities to meet all of those different styles and intelligences. Only about 30% of what we read and hear is retained, and the rest comes through active engagement. And so I do everything I can to make sure that students are actively engaged. And I also use it to supplement an interactive lecture. Interactive lectures are excellent ways of giving students information and involving them, but it's one step further than me being in the front and providing them with the foundational information. And I also like it because it holds students accountable for reading. Any assignments that they've had prior to a particular active engagement requires that foundational knowledge, and I make an expectation that they do their reading that will provide them with that information, and then I run with it and tie any type of activity to the content that they bring into the classroom. And I always try to remember that what I do is about the students, and I see my work as doing what I need to do with my strategies in the classroom to facilitate their learning and to make sure, again, that they produce the information in something that might be graded or not graded at some point in time. Marian Diamond and Pat Wolf, Eric Jensen, they all talk about episodic learning and the episodic memory. And it's about having experiences, and the experiences in the classroom hopefully tap into their prior learning. The experiences enhance the reading that they've done, and it activates the brain. And the more that we activate the brain and engage all the firing of the synapse, the more they will retain and learn. Sometimes I don't see any difference. They're both engaged and they both draw meaning from their learning. I think the graduate students are a little more reluctant to participate because it's different than what they're used to. The meanings that they draw are deeply insightful, and I think their aha moments, those learning peaks, are much greater for the graduate students. But they do participate, and they are very quick to say, you know, this particular strategy didn't work for me. How could I change it a little bit to have it be more meaningful to them? But I think whether you're 20 or 40, I think the active engagement with the material that you've read or new information that was presented in class helps you with those making of meaning out of the information that you're learning. What you're about to see is an activity in an educational psychology course where the students are education majors, primarily secondary education, and we've been studying student variations and how different all of our students are, and we just started intelligence, and so we're looking at one person's research on intelligence.
Okay, so I'm negative 2 for both of them, so I'm converger. Okay. Got it.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Compare notes.
Sorry, this converger over here, and I was a converger. Okay. And then...
How many of you watched aerial skiing last night? Anybody? Aerial skiing last night?
Wait, skating?
Aerial skiing. Anybody follow that? Was he not amazing, the American?
I didn't get to see him.
Speedy Peterson. I think his name's Jarrett, and they call him Speedy, and he's an aerial skier. And I don't know the jargon, but his last, is it called a trick? Event? Skill? Jump? He somersaulted 3 times and twisted 5 times. Absolutely amazing. And ended up with a silver medal.
There used to be an event in the Olympics called ski ballet, and it's really funny. So you guys should all go find a video of it online. It's like
Ski
on
ballet?
the ground,
No, there's
on
a talent.
skis, and they're doing like weird things.
And I'm assuming you caught, if you had the time, the skating. And are these just not the most intelligent, bodily kinesthetic, intelligent people you've ever seen? They're absolutely amazing.
My one American girl is 16 years old.
There are 2 Americans, both in high school. One was studying yesterday for a paper that was due today, apparently, and she was going to write to her teacher and ask for an extension because she was competing in the Olympics. And she apparently had been emailing and texting with her friends, and her friends were saying how hard the assignment is and how hard they've been working. And she decided, oh, she better not cap out, and she should stick with the deadline and get the assignment done. So there she is competing. I think she got 6th place? Yeah. Out of 20? No, absolutely amazing people. So perfect timing for us to talk about multiple intelligences. We're staying with the idea of variation in all of the students and moving into more contemporary theories instead of working with theories from 50, 60 years ago. And intelligence. So we'll talk today and next week about intelligence and how intelligence, definitions of intelligence vary. And I want to start with the first survey that you completed. It's very simple. If you haven't scored it yet, it's just counting the number of check marks for each of the categories, and then majority wins. Okay? Multiple intelligences is the work of Howard Gardner, and he is a professor at Harvard, and has been working on variations of intelligence since the early 60s, feeling that using IQ alone is too limiting. There's more to you and to me with our intelligence than an IQ score. So his question is, where are you smart? Instead of asking the question, how smart are you? And I think that's far more inclusive, and it has really changed the way in which we look at intelligence, but also big impact on gifted and talented programs and advanced placement in our high schools. So here's the task for today. I am going to group you by like intelligences. And let's do that first before I give you the directions. So for those of you who scored highest in linguistic intelligence, who are you?
What if we had a tie?
I have a tie.
All right, if you have a tie, pick the one that you believe is most like you,
as intelligent people, you tend to check things that you are all the time, or sometimes, or wish you were. And sometimes they're not always honest, because this is not a scientific tool at all. But go with the one, if you've tried, the one that you feel is most like you. Does that help? Or are you thinking, that doesn't give me any more information? All right. Linguistic, where are you? Who are you? All right, let's put you up here at this empty table. If there are not enough chairs, find more chairs. Logical. Where are logical folks? All right, I'm going to put you over here at this table, so come on over here. Logical, mathematical. All right, so then you just hang out. Andy's gone. I expected Andy to be with you since he's a mathematician. Spatial. Do we have any spatial preferred intelligence? Spatial? All right, I want spatial at that blank table over there. Musical. Let's put musical right up center here. Bring your things. All right. Naturalists. Do we have naturalists? Existentialists. Kinesthetic. Psychomotor kinesthetic. Let's move you all over there. Kinesthetic. Interpersonal. Interpersonal. All right. Hang out there, man. Wow. Intrapersonal. All right. Let's put you in the far corner. That means nothing.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, you completed an unscientific tool, so we have to consider the results because it's not a scientific tool, but it gives us a feel for where your preferences lie. What I'm going to have you do as a team, you're a homogeneous team of like intelligence, I'm going to give you a sheet of poster paper, and there are a lot of markers, and what I want you to do is have a conference first amongst yourselves, for the few of you that are alone, but otherwise for you who have more than 2 people at your table, or 2 at your table, I want you to figure out a way to create a poster representing your intelligence. If, let's say you are in the business and you're going to market the multiple intelligence classroom posters so teachers can have them around the room, this is what I want you to create. So talk amongst yourselves. What are your preferences? What do you need as a learner? What do you need to take in information as a learner? What ways do you prefer to produce the work to show what you've learned? I'll give you as much time as you need to have that conversation and begin the production of that poster. You can write words, you can draw pictures, you can use symbols. It doesn't matter to me how you demonstrate, but it's a non-professional. Details matter, but the quality of artistry or whatnot won't matter except for our spatial group. That might come more natural. All right, does that make sense, the task? Okay, paper, markers, everything's up here. 1 poster per group. All right, go. Yes, either one. Some of us prefer lines, some of us don't like lines. And it's the Post-it stuff, so it should be a bit sticky.
Lines, no lines.
Oh, okay. Not thinking that's details of the
2? Oh, we got it.
Take the bucket, pick the ones you want, and then bring it up. You can take lines or it doesn't matter. And I saw you and Andy took up with you in the lodge. So I know Kate was
Good job.
Scooby-Doo.
understand why.
That's way better than mine. Why is our softball lime green?
Well, no, we can do it. I just don't know how.
Yep, I agree. Okay.
So here, I'll start.
All right, you start.
Counselor.
Counselor. Counselor. That's my spatial intelligence group.
COUNSELO.
Yep.
And then we're gonna draw. We're gonna have a picture for each one. Here we got the couch.
The couch?
This is a psychologist.
Okay, that's.
Okay, what are we gonna call the last one? Just like, or like, oh, I just had a word and I lost it. Oh, I should probably have
Musicality.
like transcend. What colors are guitar? Orange, pink. Pink's a good color. It's definitely good. Why not? I'm scared. Question. Did I spell spatial right? Just like when I'm making big letters, I like, yeah. Okay, good. I forget how to spell things when I'm writing big letters.
Just draw a picture of it, you're okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you come over here.
Okay, wait, what do we go? It's going to be
Let's go leader.
Up in the lead.
Yeah, I think, what else? What kind of assignments do you like?
This is turning out a lot better than I expected.
My person needs clothes on.
You need to dry yourself.
No way.
Oh, we can't have just some of us in the tree.
Yeah, we all have to be in a tree.
We're going to have one group at a time. Put your poster on the wall. Well, let's start on the whiteboard and we'll work our way over. And I want you to explain to us the key pieces of your intelligence because we will have you in our classrooms. We need to know what do interpersonal students need. Whether I'm teaching a music class, a Phi-Ed class, a chemistry class, it does not matter. You as Phi-Ed teachers need to know what do your linguistic students need. History teachers need to know what do your spatial learners need to be effective learners and successful in your classroom. So share with us what is best for you, and then I'm going to share with you some stereotypes of each of these intelligences that it's almost comical. It's just so classic. All right? So let's start with linguistic because I'm not sure why, but Gardner always lists that one first. So if you will, put your poster on the whiteboard over there. And then as a group, will you work us through your imagery and tell us what you most need as learners?
The linguistic intelligence group. And what we did was we created a Scrabble board with all of the different things that come together with linguistics. Like our primary focus is language, so we focus a lot on like reading and writing and talking. I know for myself, I do it anyway. I don't know about the rest of you guys. We have words like writing, and we have different languages because some of us are language majors and text and English and somebody else.
I don't know, just for me, I don't know about you guys, but like a lot of like what I do best stuff is like written assignments. Like I've always been like really, really good at like writing papers, and that's how like I process information. I always have to write everything down.
Are you a good note taker in all of your classes?
I'm very picky note taker.
Do any of you rewrite your notes to help you organize the information?
I do. At the end of the day, I end up rewriting my notes. I retain the information better, and it helps if I talk through things as well. I bounce a lot of ideas off my husband, and so he has learned a lot about educational psychology in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so whenever someone like writes something on the board, so like writing something out, that helps a lot too, just on a really basic level. Like we're able to learn orally too, but it helps to be able to see it. Just because I know for me, it's really easy for me to bring back those images of like what a page looks like when I'm reading those look like on the board and things like that. So.
Are not necessarily in the college classroom, but would you say when you think back to middle school and high school, bulletin boards, were those helpful to you if they were used appropriately, if they were used as teaching tools?
I can close my eyes and see
Yes.
the bulletin board and see where things were written in the bullet points, and I can still do that for some of my high school classes.
All right, take us through the logical intelligence.
All right, I made this poster based on what I expected a logical thinking student would make a poster on, because I don't know. I didn't want to make it about what I thought. But I mean, it's what I think, being the same learner too. You'll notice right away that it's in an outline, because right away I put, what do I need to learn? I put structure. And the first example is outline. So I made the poster an outline, and then another example are deadlines. A logical thinker, I think, needs to be held to deadlines. Next I put visuals, and I don't think that maybe first you would think a mathematical, logical thinker would need visuals, just because they've got numbers flying over their heads. But a lot of math and science are graphs and shapes and patterns, so I put a little example over here, that looks like. And like, I can look at this and right away see what this is, and understand all of the things that relate, you know, what's going on here. I can look at this sequence right here and understand the pattern. So that's a visual thing, I think. And then the last thing I put for what I need to learn is a logical coherence. So like, stuff has to relate to each other. You can't just go to a logical thinker and say one topic and then say something that doesn't really relate to it, even though it may be in the same field. There has to be some type of relation, otherwise it's not really going to matter to them. And then I put a logical thinker's favorite types of homework. And the first one I put were math problems. And I remember I could sit in high school and I could go through a sheet full of algebra problems and have a lot of fun. And a lot of people probably would hate them. But I thought they were really easy. And probably because I thought they were easy, I thought they were fun. Next I put solving puzzles. I think probably any type of puzzle, even like little jigsaw puzzles, probably a logical thinker would like. Then experimenting. Example, science or physics labs. It's probably a big hands-on thing that, personally, I'm not a big fan of the hands-on labs, but I know that once I start them, I can't stop, because it's pretty fun. And I think it's probably the best way for someone in a science or physics class to learn the material, is to actually touch it. And then the last type of homework that I put was diagrams and illustrations. And I put some little, like this chemistry stuff, you know, that's an illustration. Diagrams like dichotomy keys and stuff like that. And a little picture of a cell, and a sodium potassium pump. I don't know.
And they put their good old-fashioned outline right dead center in the page. And I said, why in the center? Why not off on one of the corners? And they said, well, because it was logical that it go right in the center. It was Roman numeral 1, 2, 3. It was absolutely classic. And the linguistic always is about letters and words. Rarely are there images. So your Scrabble board is a stretch for a lot of the linguistic posters. The two classic intelligences valued in schools today, always, haven't they been? When you think about all the standardized tests that you've taken, they're all the logical, linguistic intelligence, and this is where Gardner's work deviates from everybody else's with the rest to come, because he feels that the majority of students are being missed if our focus is always linguistic and logical. So let's go with spatial. Thank you.
Hand of the spectrum, we have spatial, and as you can tell, doesn't look anything like these posters. This one's all over the place, and that's kind of how we think. We're just kind of random, illogical. We don't really understand things fully until we see it. I remember an incident in AP Psychology senior year when we were learning about brain neurons, and we were reading the book, and I just could not understand it for the life of me. But as soon as my teacher drew it on the board, it made perfect sense. We're sensitive to color, that's why I drew the color wheel. Sometimes I like to doodle in class. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Actually, I find it helpful for me to help focus on what the teacher's saying when I doodle. I don't know why that is. We like charts and graphs and stuff. So, that's it.
It's classic. It's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
We chose to do a board game to represent ours because we enjoy like social interaction like that. Like we said, we like games in class, like a Jeopardy review game's helpful. We'd always like to do like an oral presentation as opposed to writing a paper or something like that. We're probably not going to take a whole lot of notes because we're more
Audio.
yeah, auditory learners.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that like in high school when I did presentations, like I excelled in history, but the reason I excelled in history is because my history teacher allowed me to, instead of writing papers, he always allowed me to do either a presentation in class or to write a song for every, write a song on my guitar for every subject that we had. And I got hundreds on almost every test that I took in high school in history just because he allowed me to be able to never write papers. And I'm terrible at writing papers, and I don't learn anything when I write a paper, but I really do learn when I have to give a presentation or be in front of people.
Yeah, we're comfortable in crowds for the most part, so like group work and stuff like that is pretty acceptable for an interpersonal learning.
Think of those students in your classroom who need to talk. And it's not about their social life always, but they need to talk and think their way through what they're learning. It's essential. And so, again, being attentive to why they're talking. And oftentimes, it's off task as much as it is on task. All right, thank you. Let's go to intrapersonal.
So, that kind of helps.
I think it's very symbolic of your intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like group work. I learn best while I work on my own. I learn according to understanding of my own learning style. So if I understand myself best, then I can understand how I can learn best. I reflect and review what I've just learned. So a lot of reviewing I think helps and figure out what I've soaked in and what I still need to work on. I understand my own, yeah, I talked about that. Set learning goals that correspond with my own personal goals. Learn best independently. Prefer control over my own learning and intellectual development. So I like to choose what kind of goes with options. I want to choose how I learn and because that's how I learn best. And explore thought and what I've just learned in great depth and really reflect on it.
I've never had one person in the intrapersonal intelligence, but here's what typically happens. It does not matter the size of the group. They separate from each other, and they do their own thing. And one time I had a group, there were 3 in the group, and they tore the page into 3, and they each did their own.
Yes.
Yeah. And very similar to that, it was a group of 4, and they drew lines, and they each took a column, and they put their information in. It couldn't have been more classic. All right? So the next time I say get in a group and discuss, and you hear Rosalind go, oh, we'll understand. All right. Musical. Let's have you present yours.
Oh, what happened there? Okay, this is our music poster, and this is what we started with. Music without life would be flat. Okay. Yeah, I don't know to say that. Okay. Well, I don't know. We just had a lot of fun with our posters. Yeah, okay. We were thinking about Bloom's taxonomy, and we decided that music was really its own level of thinking. So we had to add a 7 for it to be, obviously, the highest level of cognitive domain.
Music is a lot of multitasking at one time, so that's why it's higher level of thinking.
We kind of talked about how, it's easier to like remember things if we hear it in a song. Or
for example, the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Do you guys remember that from middle school? Did you even learn it?
No.
Okay, well, I will never, ever, ever forget it because I heard it once in math class in 8th grade, and ever since then, I will never forget. And I can't even tell you how many random songs I remember from when I was just little, and me and my sisters would just make up stuff, I don't know, or commercials and stuff.
Or for me, like, for especially different things that I've learned in like Sunday school and things like that, as far as the books of the Bible, if I were to sit down and start trying to write them down, there's not a chance of me ever being able to list them. But then, like, it's so funny that when I, like, sing the song in my head that I learned, that I'm able to, like, list them all. Or, like, the states. I can list all the states in alphabetical order if I sing it in my head. If not, not a chance. But if I can, like, think of the tune of the song, it's really easy.
So did you all watch Schoolhouse Rock?
Yes. Yes.
So rhythm, rhyme, poetry works for the musical intelligence segment. Mnemonics. Yeah, you must have. You just described a number of different mnemonics that you use to help you remember.
I have so many
via rhythm and music.
Whenever I study for tests, it's like I'll make up a mnemonic to remember like the steps to things or.
It's a lot of audio learning too. So like if like for me it helps like if I'm listening like while I'm writing down something or like while there's a visual while someone's talking, I learn it a whole lot better.
Yeah, and when I read textbooks in high school, every single time I had a reading assignment, I would always read it out loud to myself.
Yep.
Because I would just have to read it out loud and be taking notes at the same time.
All right, tell us about your intelligence.
All right, well, we just kind of all like jumped in on it. As you can see, like it's not. we just all sat in our spots and started going right at it. We didn't have much planning going on.
We're hands-on, obviously, hands with the...
We're kind of risk takers.
Risk takers, this is the kite-eating tree right here. So
it's a ride.
It's a ride. We like rides.
Yep.
We like rides. Yep.
Yeah, we're active and like climbing trees.
Tell this group of literature teachers and history teachers and chemistry teachers and math teachers, for you Fayette it makes perfect sense, how can we help you in our more sedentary classrooms? Typically more sedentary. How can we help you?
Well, like, just when we were sitting over there, I was just like, okay, I'm getting antsy now. Like, it's just hard to sit in one place for so long. So just being active and, like, getting up and moving, even if it's for just, like, a minute or two. So that would be helpful.
And everything, yeah, like in, like, stations and just always, like, and activities that have objectives, I think, are crucial. And once you know the objective, to kind of move on to the next kind of thing.
And one thing that works for me is if, like, we have, like, some sort of simulation, I'll learn way better from that than if we just take notes. And I'm actually art, I'm not Fayette, so it's kind of weird that would incorporate in there, but
art is very
I feel like a lot of art is kinesthetic also.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised to see this group all grab a pen, marker, and start going in their own spot, very classic, and then a few of you stood on a regular basis, and some kind of popped up and down, and that, again, is very classic in what this intelligence needs. Thank you. Your homework assignment, until we gather again next Wednesday, be attentive to these different intelligences that are in your lives, in your class, in your social life, in your friendships, in the social things that you do, as well as the academic pieces that you do. Do any of you coach or work with youth groups, do tutoring? Be attentive to all of those needs that those students have, and how are their various intellectual needs being met via Gardner's multiple intelligences, so that we keep asking the question, how am I smart? And again, asking the question, where am I smart, not how am I smart? Almost did it differently than confirmed does. All right? Buckets for the markers up here. If you'll return them, I'm going to hang on to the posters, and we're going to refer to them as we wrap up this chapter.
No, I have a question.
I think a number of things went well with this particular lesson. The intent was a social activity, a kinesthetic activity. It was also for them to engage with the information and have an episode of learning that they can go back to. And all of that worked perfectly. They were on task, and they drew conclusions based on what they knew, and that was the point of the activity. What disappointed me was how long it took them to finish. I've used this activity in the past, and I've never had groups need as much time. So that took away our processing time. So instead of the activity covering one class period, I now have to use 2 class periods. The challenges are the enormous amount of time in planning. And you need to gather your resources. You have to strategize out your time. You have to think, how might your students think and perceive this activity, and predict a little bit. And sometimes it works out well, and sometimes it's disappointing. But I find that when I plan well and I'm really intentional, and I can predict a little bit of their responses, I get what I'm looking for, and that's deep engagement with the information. And I believe we got some of that in class last time. Well, I love the one that you saw. Another activity, I call it stations work, where I set up anywhere from 5 to 7 stations around the classroom. Each activity is different from the one before, and students rotate around the room. Sometimes the degree of difficulty changes, sometimes the content changes, but all centered on the same concept. And then I have another, I think every teacher's favorite that comes out of the public schools is Quiz Trade, where students are moving around the room. They have a potential quiz question. They ask a partner the question and get the answer. Their partner does the same thing, and then they trade cards and they move on to another partner. So they're getting multiple questions and not just repeating the same question and answer over and over again. I love active learning for many reasons. First, the social interaction. As human beings, we need to be social with our learning, and these are perfect for social interaction. I like how they can either introduce or reinforce something that they're learning, big concepts or small details. It's kinesthetic in that it has activity, and it's critically important to all of the students. They remind me regularly that they want to do a little bit of movement around the room. And for me, I get to refer back to the activity. I can say, do you remember when? And if they can't remember the content, all I have to do is help them remember the activity, and then the content comes back. And that's why I use them as often as I can. I make my choices of which activities and when throughout a semester. I think based on the pacing of the semester, who my students are. If I have a lot of extroverted students and I have many who need a lot of movement, I'll use more activities. I primarily use them to introduce a brand new concept or to reinforce after we've been working on something for quite a long time. And it's the social, the kinesthetic, and the episodic learning that I'm trying to get. And with the reviewing, the depth of their memories and their recall and their ability to tie it to something new, I find to be very deep. To be perfectly honest, I don't assess active learning activities in class. I don't assess lectures. I don't assess videos that I use in class because they're all tools that are helping students get to a final project or a test or a different written assignment. So I don't use these activities as forms of assessment, but forms of building their knowledge and building their skills to get to an assessment.